Kaz Grala is the winner, the youngest driver to win at Daytona in NASCAR National Touring Series history.
Joey Stone just picked up his first career win. Holy cow, what a finish.
The first episode of All Clear is finally here, and boy, we have a lot to talk about, guys. Welcome to the show. My name is Joey Stone. Of course, I'm joined with my co-host Kaz Grala, driver of the number 50 for the Money Team, and of course, a bunch of other stuff, Truck Series, Xfinity, like dudes all over the place in NASCAR and everything. Kaz, how you feeling, man? How's everything going right now?
Oh, it's going great right now. I mean, I've been working the last few years to try to be the driver of everything. So I'm glad I can now be introduced as the driver of everything.
I think that's like a name that I think everyone's got for you right now, is that you're just like the multi-class man right now. Like driving in the trucks for Young Motorsports. You got that going on right now. You're driving for Alpha Prime, first time actually coming up at an Auto Club here. By the time this is uploaded, it's going to be literally the next day. And, Cup Series, obviously, with the Money Team and everything. And people are also saying you're the driver of the bright cars, apparently, this year. the bright, flashy cars, which, I mean, honestly, I think that's pretty freaking cool if you ask me.
I mean, I'll take it. I'll take that as one of my titles. I know I'll be a hit within the diecast community for kids because I definitely have the brightest, funnest cars this year, which is so random because it was just totally a coincidence that Pit Viper designed our Daytona 500 car to be super bright, and now I'm in a Lilly Finance Rutabush car this weekend in Xfinity, and once again we've got like the tie-dye rainbow thing going on. So yeah, apparently that's my thing this year, is the bright cars. Little bright did cars. I know going into it.
Yeah, and bright cars for sure is part of you. But speaking of part of you, well, let's get into this here. You know, obviously people are watching this show right now, they're listening to this wherever it is, and they're probably thinking this is awesome, but how in the world did these two meet? Like, where did this show even come from? So, let's start with kind of like your background a little bit. We've gotten to the point of here you are, you're driving now part-time in the Cup Series this year. You're moving on up the chain, is what people would like to say and whatnot. And that's the crazy journey about NASCAR, is the journey to get to the top. What did you do to get to this point? Where did you come from? Where does your racing background come from? And how do we get to the point here where you are the driver of the bright cars?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the cool part, is I feel like by the time people hear of drivers, when they get to ARCA or trucks or Xfinity, I mean, those drivers have been doing this and been working on this for 10 to 15 years before that point, before anyone sees who they are, before anyone knows who they are. So I'm no exception to that. I mean, I've been racing since I was 4 years old, and been winning at every level, winning championships at every level on the way up, at grassroots stuff that nobody really hears about unless they were at the track for that race that day. So I mean, I may be kind of catching on here and gaining some traction with different rides this year, part-time Cup, and dabbling in Xfinity and trucks a bunch as well. But I'm certainly not new to this sport, not new to this lifestyle. And I just saw something on Twitter actually yesterday that it was the 5-year anniversary of my truck win at Daytona, and that blew my mind. That
feels like old. We're getting old.
It feels like it was yesterday, 5 years ago. I can't even believe that. So I guess even though I am only 23 and I'm still young, I feel like I've been around for a long time, and I've been racing for as long as I remember. So I've literally always had no life and have been just on the road every weekend for racing since I was a little kid. So there's been a lot of steps along the way, and a lot of guys come up through dirt racing. I actually came up more through road course racing and go-karts. That's what I did from when I was 4 till I was 9. I never drove on an oval till I was 9. That was in funny enough, actually, this week, it was Austin Cindric's Bandolero that I tested on the Charlotte Motor Speedway 5th mile. That was the first lap I ever did on an oval, was in Cindric's Bandolero.
Wow. Okay. And ironically, how now Austin Cindric is now a Daytona 500 winner. And I don't think anybody expected that to happen. Like that's crazy how everything comes around in racing, and like we live in such a small world, and like how it's crazy how you have that sort of connection with Austin Cindric of like, hey, I drove that car, he's a 500 winner now, you guys are both in the Cup Series. It's crazy how that all comes about and everything. And I love what you said about your background, how you're all over the road, you're everywhere, and people think, oh, that's so cool, and like, oh, he's living the best life possible right now. But a lot of people don't really talk about how there's struggles when it comes to that sometimes, like, because you want to be able to find that kind of place where you can be there long term, right, and not have to kind of worry about moving all over the road, like when it comes to teams and when it comes to all these type of things. If you kind of want to dive into it a little bit, like, what is it like being a driver? And like, I feel like all of NASCAR, every fan out there I see on Twitter, you have such a huge amount of support, a big fan base, a lot of people cheering you on to make it to that top level when it comes to full-time driving and competing at the best competition possible. What's it like being in that position where you're racing for this team over here, you're racing for the Xfinity Series here in the Cup Series? What's that all like? What are the challenges that come with that?
Well, I mean, it's honestly a lot to keep track of, as I've learned this year, because I own it, things that you don't really see, I guess, as a fan. The inner part of the sport is like, as the driver, I actually own my own race seats. I own my own sets of seat belts for them. I own my own helmets and my own racing shoes, a bunch of stuff. Obviously, the teams typically buy the suits since they have the team's logo branding on them or the sponsor's logo branding on them. But there's a lot of pieces of equipment that the driver actually owns, much like if you're a kid growing up, you're playing hockey, you own your pads, you own your stick. There's just certain things you have to own as a driver because you quite literally need a seat in the car if you drive the car. So you have a seat that fits you. Well, trying to juggle all of these pieces of equipment going from this team to that team to that team is actually quite an undertaking. And it has to do with the scheduling, because I was in Daytona for a full week, Monday to Monday. Because practice was Tuesday, qualifying Wednesday, all the way through the race on Sunday. Well, I drove back to North Carolina 8 hours on Monday. I got back Monday night. So that was the second 500 miles I drove in a 24-hour time period. And so I get back Monday night and I got to hit the road Tuesday morning over to the Xfinity shop, because the hauler loads Tuesday afternoon to already head west to be here in California for the race this weekend. So I had to wash my racing underwear, organize my shoes, my helmet, change the color of my visor, pull my seat insert out of my race seat at the Cup shop, bring it all over to the Xfinity shop on Tuesday to have that ready to load and head west here to California. And the biggest point of stress is always, well, if I get here and I realize, oh man, I missed this, I forgot this, depending on what this is, that might be a major issue. That might be something I need to race. And there's not exactly a store out here in California 5 minutes from the track to just go buy a Hans device or a race seat insert or something like that.
Or racing underwear, from what you described.
Yeah, exactly. These are just not things that they have at Target or at CVS. So it's actually been fairly stressful for me to try to keep track of what all is here. And especially, this was extra confusing because I headed west here to race in Xfinity this weekend. But next weekend in Vegas, I race both Xfinity and trucks, doubleheader. First time I've ever done that in my career. So I had to make sure that Young's Motorsports over at the truck shop had everything they needed for my truck and equipment wise already on Tuesday of this week in advance of next week, because I'm staying out west through the West Coast swing. So I won't be back to make sure everything gets sorted out. So it's been a lot so far to juggle with the fact that Daytona was followed right by this 3-week stretch of the West Coast swing. And I feel like that's something that as a race fan, you don't really think about. You see drivers like, oh yeah, they race on Saturdays, they race on Sundays. Seems like a good gig, right? You get 5 days off and you work 2 days a week.
Yeah,
It doesn't
easy.
exactly work that way. And then you add in all sorts of media coverage, which we got excellent coverage this
Mhm.
past week at Daytona with the money team racing. Truly, it turns into a full schedule, pretty much the entire day, 7 days a week. So it tends to turn into the opposite. And sometimes you don't feel like you get that day off. But as I kind of touched on earlier, people who have been following me know that I've been grinding for the last few years to
Oh
try
yeah.
to get more opportunities, race more, gain these full-time opportunities. So to be thrown into this chaotic, busy situation that I'm talking about right now is quite literally what I've been working for and what I've wanted to have. So I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Dude, I wouldn't either. I tell myself all the time, it's like, man, I stream every single night for 5, 6 hours, man. Like, this is a grind. Over here, Kaz is over here traveling West Coast trying to find his pair of racing underwear and trying to figure out all these different seats and making sure he's got all of his equipment. I'm over here. I need to be more grateful for what I'm doing, man. You got a lot of work ahead of you, dude. But I mean, you're still living a dream though. Like to drive in NASCAR, not alone just one series, but three of them. You got a lot of support. Like that. I think that alone right there is what definitely I would imagine what drives you a lot to keep going and to realize that you got a very bright future, and all that stuff. But speaking of opportunities, we'll get to your opportunity with the money team in just a second. One last thing I think a lot of people may want to know here. Obviously, the point of the show is to give you guys a clear analysis of what went down over the weekend of racing, and to talk about other topics in the sport. Topics that you guys may be thinking about, coming from the driver's perspective, and also just the simple fans perspective. You could say I'm an NASCAR guy, but hey, I don't know jack squat about what Kaz did or what those crews do. I'm over there just as a simple fan. But I think the last thing a lot of people may want to know is, how in the world did this combo even happen? Because a lot of people don't know this and everything. But Cash drove for RCR for a couple years, part-time wise in the Xfinity series. I believe you started, what was it, 2019, I think was your first year with RCR. You did a
Yep.
couple more
Yep.
races in 2020, I think.
Yep.
And during that longevity, I was there on the NASCAR side. I drove the A car from 2019 till about the beginning of 2021 and whatnot. And over that course of time, I met Kaz, and it's kind of a funny story how it happened. Like it was literally, and correct me if I'm wrong. You just chime in whenever if I'm wrong, but I think it was Homestead of 2019. It was the Xfinity Series finale. I can't remember if it was the day of or the day before. It was pouring rain. It was pouring buckets of rain, and I'm in the garage hauler. I'm wearing my polo shirt and everything, and I'm drenched in water. I am absolutely drenched. That Miami weather sometimes is amazing, but sometimes it sucks. And the hauler was there, so I take a seat. And I can't remember if you were already sitting there or if you came up after. I think you and I were just sitting in those two chairs outside. I can't remember if it was Tyler's hauler or some.
Yeah.
It was one of the RCR haulers, and literally, I think just over the course of that time, we were just kind of chatting, and like I think that's when you really met me for the first time, and we kind of talked about what we both did, and I think that's just kind of where that friendship just kind of started right there, and it just kind of we moved that towards uh during when the pandemic started and everything, when eNASCAR kind of came up with the Pro Invitational Series. Our good buddy, good old Tyler, was a little lost when it came to the whole spotting and then the crew chief stuff. So Kaz and I actually jumped in and helped him for a good longevity of that season. And that's just kind of how that friendship started. I always say without Tyler, without us, he wouldn't have had that third place finish at Wilkesboro. I still hold on to that very, very confidently. That crew worked a great job at Wilkesboro and everything.
Yeah, I think we'll just take the credit for Tyler's eNASCAR Pro Invitational success. We'll just put that out there. But yeah, that's exactly right. For anyone listening that doesn't iRace or hasn't iRaced before, it's amazingly realistic how much it is like real life. So Tyler Reddick was racing in the E Cup Series, I suppose, on iRacing, which was televised during the pandemic on Fox Sports 1, which was really cool. But he needed an actual spotter and an actual crew chief for those races. It's a little bit difficult to be able to focus on the race and be trying to click and check boxes and do all of that stuff yourself. And having a spotter is a huge benefit. So Joey and I ended up teaming up. Joey spotted for Tyler, thank God, because spotting's way too stressful of a job for me. I absolutely could not do
It's
that.
not that
in
bad.
life
It's
or
not that bad.
virtually. Oh, stresses me out. But all I had to do was basically check boxes for how much fuel we were going to take and how many tires we were going to take on pit stops. And I felt extremely qualified to be able to handle just that amount. And that's what I did. So I'm sticking to it.
It was a good time. It was a good time for sure. And you know, Tyler can't take all the credit, like you said. You know, I think teamwork makes the dream work, especially when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series, whatever you want to call it, and everything. Kind of want that to come back. I don't know if we'll see. Hopefully, it comes back. But now that you guys kind of understand a little bit about our backgrounds, how we met, and everything, how we got to this point, we Kaz, I mean, we talked about opportunities earlier. Let's talk about possibly one of the coolest opportunities I think any athlete in general would love to have. Just imagine your phone rings and you got Floyd Mayweather, 50-0, undefeated champion of the world, and he wants you to drive his car in the Daytona 500. It makes you a little speechless sometimes, even just thinking about it. Like that's just absolutely crazy. Kind of tell me, how did that opportunity even come about? Because I know for a long time the money team was something that kind of, was created a few years ago and no one really heard about that team for quite some time. And then all of a sudden, it was like, what, a month or so before the 500 or even speed weeks that rumors started picking up. And there was rumors that you were the driver. And I was like, Kaz and Floyd Mayweather. I'm like, no, that can't, there's no way. Like that'd be so freaking cool. And here we are, after the 500 and, let's talk about your Daytona 500 and just the opportunity in general. How did this opportunity even come about?
Well, it stems back a lot further than I feel like it may seem. I I of course a couple years ago, 2020, was driving for RCR part time, as you mentioned, and it was only 5 Xfinity races that year with them. That was what I had the sponsorship to go do, so that's what I did, and it was a limited number of opportunities to try to shine. My first race of the year was Kansas in Xfinity. Uh, that was already, after COVID, there was no practice. So I fired off after not been in an Xfinity car for a full year and ran 13th at Kansas. Wasn't anything stellar. And then the next weekend went to Road America and finished fourth in the Xfinity race there, which I was pretty happy with that. We battled up front, raced for that win all day long, and ended up finishing there top 5. So I was pleased with that. Only a week or two later, Austin Dillon ended up feeling a little bit under the weather during the week of the Daytona road course. And so RCR brought me into the shop on Thursday to get fitted in Austin's car as the backup driver. At this point, I didn't know Austin wasn't feeling well yet. They just wanted to have somebody ready in case somebody were to test positive for COVID. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I understand why they want to be safe, think ahead season here in case anything happens. So yeah, I sit in a seat. We figure out where all the measurements are, what we would need to tweak on the interior for me to drive it. All good, go home. Well, I get a call the next day from Austin's crew chief that says, it might be your lucky weekend. Austin is not feeling well. So come back to the shop. We're going to do one final fit of you in the car. I'm like, oh, well, that would be something, wouldn't it? I was already planning to travel with RCR to the Daytona road course that weekend because Earl Bamber was racing in the Xfinity car for RCR, and he had never raced in NASCAR before. So they had me going to the track to kind of walk him through it, help him if he had any questions. Yeah. So I fly down Saturday morning to Daytona to be there for the Xfinity race on Saturday. And as soon as I touch down in Daytona Beach, I get a call from Andy Petrie, the competition director at RCR, and he said, yep, Austin did test positive for COVID. So you're going to be driving the 3 car tomorrow. And keep in mind, I had never raced in the Cup Series before. I had done some part-time Xfinity stuff, and during COVID, like I said, there was no practice or anything. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be sitting in probably the most or one of the most iconic cars to ever race in the Cup Series, having no idea what I'm doing and going out and starting last and seeing what happens. What a wild situation with 24 hours of notice for that.
At a track as well that you didn't even like. Did you ever run the Daytona road course before that weekend?
Yeah, I've raced there 4 times before, twice in the Michelin Pilot Series in IMSA, and then actually twice in the Rolex 24. All but one of those races had absolutely terrible luck with being able to finish, and there were mechanical issues, all sorts of reasons we didn't finish the race. So, I mean, I had some laps there, but not necessarily an overabundance.
Not in a Cup car. Not in a Cup car, though, which is
Not
like
in
a
a
whole
Cup car.
different beast. Yeah.
I had never flipped the ignition switch of a Cup car up until I was strapped in sitting on pit road to roll out onto the racetrack for the race. So, you know, there's so much different about the Cup cars than the Xfinity cars. The digital dash, the electronic fuel injection, the zero ride height rule, the way that makes the car handle. So much that I just didn't know how to handle or how to do, and I was just firing off in that race, trying to figure it all out as we went. So that was pretty stressful for me, of course, and that was back in the day where there was no qualifying. So we started last due to a driver change, as they call it. So I started shotgun on the field and took the first few laps to just kind of feel it out and figure it out. I was like, the number one thing I had in my head was just don't do something stupid, because this is the biggest, most watched race I've ever been in.
Yeah.
So just don't do something stupid that's going to make me look bad. I'm like, if I go out and I finish in the back, then I finish in the back. I feel like, given the circumstance, with no experience, 24 hours notice, I don't think anyone expects me to finish anywhere but the back. So no expectation, just go out and try to learn, figure it out. So that's what I did. And by the end of stage 2, I'd worked my way up towards like 22nd or something, which I was already absolutely thrilled with. I thought to finish around midfield in a Cup race for my first try was pretty darn solid. And just after stage 3 started, there was a lightning delay, 30 minutes, got out of the car, went back and looked at some SMT data from the leaders, compared it to mine, and kind of saw what we were doing differently. So I had some notes as I got back into the car. And I also heard from RCR, from the upper management, and they call it the war room, back in Welcome, North Carolina, that all the engineers sit in and watch the race live. Everyone was really impressed and pleased with what I did. So that kind of gave me the confidence going into the second part of the race of, all right, I've impressed so far. Why not just go for it at this point? Don't be conservative. Don't just sit back and try to run a respectable race. Go try to pass some cars.
Let's just impress some more people. Let's do more than what they anticipated.
Exactly. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. Well, we fire back off, and I drive up towards like the top 12. End up actually leading 3 laps through a green flag pit cycle. And by the time it all cycled back out, I believe there was a restart really late in the race, and we were 10th, legitimately running 10th.
Yep.
So I was a little stressed going into that restart, I'm not going to lie, because at the point I was 10th, I really, really badly wanted to finish top 10. I thought that would be the coolest thing ever for my first Cup race, to be top 10. But I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm really pleased with how this day's gone. If I can hang top 15. Well, we go on the restart, and I don't know why I decided to do this, but I just all of a sudden gained a ton of confidence. Heading down into turn 1, I decided to like pop it 3 wide on the outside and like drive around 2 rows of guys, and somehow it stuck. We were beating doors. I ended up passing a couple more cars in the braking zone. Ended up finishing 7th.
Yep.
Right on the bumper of 6th and 5th too. I think one more lap, I actually would have had the 2 of them as well. So that was the coolest thing ever and a huge day for me. And frankly, it was a turning point in my career. I feel like that was the first time that I had been in the right position in a top quality car in a top quality race to be able to prove like, hey, when I'm in this position, I can do this.
Yeah.
Uh, and it put my name in some conversations that it wasn't in previously. One of those being the Money Team Racing, kind of tying it all back. Will Auchmuty, the general manager of the Money Team Racing, reached out to me just after that race and said, hey, we're looking to start a program here at some point when we have the sponsorship for it. We're looking for somebody that can consistently get in a car, even if it isn't full time, and do a good job. Keep the car clean, finish where the car is able to finish, and try to build a program from the ground up, because it's a different mindset and a different skill that's required to go run in an existing program and try to run up front versus running a new program and try to build. They're kind of different skills. So I feel like I had proven to them that I was able to take those opportunities that I got and deliver. And so I had been talking to them since then, since the end of 2020, late summer 2020. And it took until about the end of 2021 until they really gained that traction and landed that sponsor in Pit Viper. But
Which is freaking cool, by the way, Pit Viper.
Yeah.
They're hilarious, dude. I've been following them on social media and everything just during the 500 weekend and all that stuff. Their social media engagement is top of the market too. They're hilarious, and that's what the world is today and everything with social media. You have to have that engagement with people and the drivers and the fans, and they did a top-notch job the entire time that they were on that car and everything. Most certainly the brightest paint scheme too, the brightest colors as well and whatnot. But that's crazy how I didn't even know it went all the way back to that. I thought this was like, I mean, I knew your seventh place finish at Daytona, which you just mentioned, was groundbreaking for you. And like, I think after that race, I'm pretty sure I sent you a text with all caps that was like as long as like War and Peace, saying like how pumped I was for you, because that was so cool to see that happen. Because like, no one expected that. Like, I knew with your road course background that you were going to do a solid job. Like, I was like, he's going to do a solid job. I don't think he's going to do anything stupid and wreck the car or anything like that. We'll see what happens here. But seventh place, like at Daytona, of all tracks too, Daytona in the 3 car, you get a top 10. And like, I remember social media after was just cheering you on, like every day on Twitter. People are going crazy saying that you deserve a full-time opportunity. Why isn't Kaz here? Why isn't Kaz there? I'm sure that had to have been just insane for you. Like, just see all the mentions and all the media attention. It must have been crazy.
Yeah, and really since then, and even before then, but it definitely grew after that. I have had a lot of support on social media. I think the fans have liked my kind of old school grind to try to work my way to the top here. I didn't just simply get in full time in trucks and run full time in trucks and full time in Xfinity and full time in Cup the easy way, because I was able to buy my way there. That sounds great. I would have loved to have run full-time Xfinity. I'd love to be full-time Cup right now. But at the same time, I think getting there the old school way, by hard work and landing those sponsors and getting your foot in the door and finding opportunities like that, if you are able to make it in that way, I think it's a far more satisfying feeling when you get there. And this is what I have to do to make it. And so that this is what I'm going to do. And I haven't stopped working since over the last few years. And there have been times where it's been quiet. In 2020, my very first race of the year was July 25th. So half of the season had gone by and I hadn't been in anything. So there's been times that I've been quiet, but I haven't stopped working all the way through those. And in the times that I've made some noise and made some headlines, have been a result of some of that quiet work for the months leading up to that, to get me to be in that position to try to make that headline. So I got a lot of opportunities to do that this year. I'm pumped about that. I've got at least 18 races on my schedule heading into the year. And as I've learned the last couple of years, sometimes things pop up people may be out for a race, or there may be unsold races in a car. Different opportunities arise where I might be able to pick up races here and there. So it's definitely shaping up to be a really busy year for me, and I'm pumped about it. It started last week at the Daytona 500, and it's going to continue this week in my first race with Alpha Prime in the Xfinity Series at Auto Club.
And we're all going to be cheering you on in that one, man. I'm sure you're excited to get to Auto Club, which hasn't seen a race in like 2 years, which is 2 or 3. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3, but it's been a while since Auto Club has gotten some action, and it's gonna be cool. But speaking of, like you mentioned, about putting yourself in position, we were going to talk about it. Let's talk about Daytona for you, dude, because I think you've went through every case of emotion that weekend, like just through the duel, the 500. We're going to talk about you and the 3 wheels on the track. We gotta break this all down a little bit. Talk about duel 1, man, because like you had to race your way in. I know you got bumped out of the fastest on speed. You were like, I think the first guy out, I think, on speed, which had to have been, of course that sucks, but I think, of course, you were confident in your racing ability in the duel. I think everyone was really confident what you were going to do, but of course, it didn't start out that well for you because you got shoveled to the back, and the way the duels went, I kind of had a feeling they were going to be really quiet because of these new cars and making sure that everyone keeps these cars safe and clean for the race, because a lot of these teams didn't even have a backup car there at the track yet, and if they did, they had to get it from Charlotte and everything. So talk about, man, 15 laps to go in this race, or so 20 laps to go. It seems kind of like all hope is lost, and then all of a sudden people are starting to pay attention. It's like, wait a second, Kaz is in this lead pack of cars, and here comes that other car. I think it was JJ Yelly, who was in the show right now. He was in the show. He was just reminding them of business. And slowly but surely, here comes that bright Pit Viper machine closer and closer. Just kind of run through what that was like, because I need to hear about the emotions of this duel for you and how it all went down.
Oh gosh, well, I mean, the emotions of the duel started long before the duel. This has been the stress of the off season for months leading into this, and that Daytona is such a big deal, not just because the Daytona 500 is a big deal, but because it's what everyone's been thinking about and working towards for months leading into it. This is the culmination. And of course, I've been in this position before. Last year for the Daytona 500, I was an open car with Colleague Racing. We had to make the race. We thought we were going to be able to get in on speed. Evidently, we qualified 20th overall in 2021, and we thought, oh, that should get us in. The top 2 that locked in of the open cars qualified 7th and 11th in 2021. I mean, the open cars were fast. So we're like, oh gosh, all right, we got to race our way in. But again, confident we can do that. Good team. I felt like I had good experience at Daytona, no problem. Well, I learned very quickly how wrong things can go in the duel, because in qualifying, in qualifying, things are in your control. For the month leading into Daytona, when you build your car, what you have in your control is your speed. You try to control that Wednesday night. You get out there on Thursday night, not everything is in your control. So we're driving around minding our own business. We're in the transfer spot. This is 2021. Somebody spins ahead, the whole line checks up. Somebody behind me did not see that everyone was checking up and drove straight through me, destroyed us from behind. So we continued in the duel, but the car was destroyed. We were at half speed at best. And looking ahead, I could see the guys racing to make it into the Daytona 500. We were out. We had absolutely no chance of making this race. So I'm sitting there for 20 laps knowing we're out and being disappointed about this, but you still fight for everything you can. You stay on track. You got to wait and see what happens. It's not over till it's over. I did learn that in a big way in 2021, because somehow the 2 cars that were racing to make it into the 500 ended up wrecking together, taking each other out of the race completely. And that put me back in the transfer and into the Daytona 500 for 2021. So I got to race in the 500. I got that experience, but I also learned that stress of trying to make the race. So coming into this year's 500, I'm like, guys, we just have to lock in on time on Wednesday night, because there's too much left to chance on Thursday night. I don't want to have to race our way into the duel, even though I know we can. I don't want to have to do that because you never know what's going to happen. And of course, on Wednesday night, we are 0.08 of a second away from being in that top 2 of the open cars and locking in. We were just behind Jacques. And that put us third, and the difference between second and third is huge because now we got to race our way in on Thursday night. So going into it, I felt good about it. I thought we were going to be fine. We were racing the 55 car of JJ Yaley, who I felt like we had a little more speed and a little more friends out there than he did, I thought. So I was like, all right, I think we're going to be okay here. And we were for the first 25 laps of the duel. We're running ahead of him, quite a bit ahead of him, actually. We come up to the green flag pit stops, and literally the one thing I had to do was not speed, and I sped. I don't even know how it happened, honestly. I don't know where it happened. There are sometimes those pit road speeding penalties that you leave pit road knowing like, shoot, that was close. I hope it wasn't a penalty. And you're just waiting to hear the spotter say, yeah, we got a penalty.
Yep, come down.
But then there's other times where you didn't think you were even close. Like this was one of those. I thought it was all good. I come off pit road. We're all set. I didn't even feel like I pushed it. I didn't think we were that close. We got hit with a speeding penalty. So that totally took me by surprise. And now I had the next 25 laps to think about this. 25 laps at Daytona is a long time.
Yeah, people think it's quick, but it's not. It's like sitting there reading a book. Like it takes a while.
It takes a very, very long time. That was over 20 minutes, which in a race car feels like 20 hours. And you're just thinking about like everything leading into this week. We have to make this race. This is Floyd Mayweather's team debuting. We have to be in this race. We can't miss this race. And every race for me as a part-time guy is an audition. An audition for a new job, an audition to keep your job. We never have any job security. So the last thing that I needed was to miss this race due to something that was my fault. So I'm thinking about this. I'm frustrated. I'm stressed. I've got a pit in my stomach so severely here. But as I mentioned before, there's nothing you can do other than keep fighting and keep doing your job until the checkered flag flies. And the leaders lapped me. I tried to peel in behind them. I couldn't stay onto the back of their line because when the lead pack passes you and you're by yourself, they're going 15 miles an hour faster than you are. It's too much of a speed differential to be able to get in behind them and be able to latch on to their draft. So they passed and I miss them. The next group gets to me just behind the leaders, another group of lead lap cars, but just behind the 6 that were leading. And somehow I was lucky that there were about 4 or 5 cars in a line, and the last car in that line was struggling to hang on a little bit. He was about 4 or 5 car lengths back, Kurt Busch. So I see this gap. I stuff it into that gap. Kurt Busch gets to my bumper and chisels me up into this line, and I stick. And now I'm in with them. Now, I've got lap times on my digital dash. We're running 3 seconds faster now than I was running by myself. And that's also about 2 seconds faster than Yaley in the 55 car was running in his group of 3 cars. They were 2/3 of a lap ahead of me because of my penalty.
So when you do the math, it's like it's going to come down to literally the last 2 laps, maybe last lap of the race here.
I'm looking at it, and my math is telling me we're going to be a lap or 2 short. I don't think we're going to get to him. There's no way we can get to him in time. But my job's the same. I stay in line, go as fast as I can, try to run those quick lap times, see if we can mow him down. Where the turning point for me was Yaley's group of 3 got lapped by the leaders who were about 30 car lengths ahead of our group. And when they did, Yaley's line got kind of disorganized. His 3 did not stay tucked up nose to tail. Simply, they ended up getting all stretched out and separated, and that costs you a ton of time now, another second or 2 per lap. And that was the difference of me being able to roll on by Yaley in my little line on the very last lap of the race to be able to make the 500. So I think I definitely took years off my life. I think I took years off of everyone on the team's lives during that race. So not at all the way I wanted it to go. I hate that we got that penalty and that it was my fault, but in the end, I suppose if there is a silver lining, it was at least exciting.
No, I mean, it's exciting for sure, man. I mean, the crazy part is it was so exciting and like no one knew, no one noticed it because even on the broadcast, like no one saw it. And I think everyone didn't really realize it because you and Yaley were a lap down. You guys were a lap down. So no one really thought of you catching him there. And I think no one even noticed it until I see on my screen. I'm watching it too because I mean, this is a long story short. I thought I had tickets to the duels and then I didn't. And that's a story for another day. We're not going to talk about that on there. I was literally outside the track as the duels were going on and I had no way of getting in. So yeah, that was something else. But and I have it pulled up on my phone and I noticed they're showing your car and I'm like, what's going on? And I hear Mike Joy on the broadcast say Kaz got in. And I was like, wait, well, hold on, wait. And I'm looking at the ticker and I noticed you passed JJ and no one noticed it. And then everyone went crazy on social media after because everyone thought you were down and out, like because of where you guys were. But that's just crazy. I mean, just imagine yourself like 20 laps up to go in the race. Seems like all hope is lost. And that's why you just don't give up in general with anything in life. For anyone who's listening out there who needs some motivation, listen to this podcast. But that's just insane. It's crazy. And like, I had to ask you what that felt like getting out of the car, you know, knowing that you made it in, you got those pit Viper shades on, everything, you're rocking, having a good time and all that. I got to ask, did you talk to Floyd after that?
Not after. I FaceTimed with him actually before the duel. He gave a little pep talk. Okay. And he was feeling good about it. He was excited for us and really confident in us. So I knew I couldn't let him down in that race. And so I will say, as stressed as I was for those 25 laps about whether we were going to make it or not after my mistake, it was that much times 10 of relief and elation after the race. Relief really is the word because we were stressed all week about trying to make this race beyond just those 25 laps. And then, of course, it peaked during those 25 laps of looking like we weren't going to make it. So really to just be able to sit back and relax after that race and know, okay, all right, we made it. We're going to be racing on Sunday. We did what we needed to do, although it was hairy. That was the best part. And obviously, as you know, not only, I mean, it is Floyd's energy, absolutely, but it's really Pit Viper's energy too. Just that confidence, almost cockiness. That's kind of their brand. That's their lifestyle brand is like loud in your face cockiness. That energy doesn't really match if you miss the race. You had to make the race. So I thank God I was able to get out of the car and throw my Pit Vipers on and walk into the media center and do the press conference and be able to be super excited about being in the race and knowing that we made it in a clutch fashion. And know that we were going to be on the starting grid on Sunday because everyone's got a chance. If you start a race at Daytona, you have a chance. And now that doesn't mean it's all up to luck. I think some people put too much emphasis on luck on super speedways. It's not luck. You have to run a perfect race.
Oh, yeah.
But it equalizes you to where somebody who's maybe in a lesser car with a lower budget, they might have that perfect race and they could win. Whereas they could have a perfect race at most other tracks throughout the year. And they're not going to win the race, but they might do well. Daytona, you run a perfect race, you can win. And so going into Sunday, we were like, why not us? Looking back on it, we actually had a couple of hiccups. We did not end up running a perfect race, unfortunately. But hey, we had a shot at it. That's all you can ask for going into the Daytona 500.
Absolutely. You had a shot. You're now going into the Daytona 500 with the brand new money team, the brightest car on the track, all eyes on you. And we're going to break that down right after this quick ad break. Hi, my name is Joey Stone. You know, whenever I go racing on NASCAR, Heat, or iRacing, I always want to make sure that I am at the top of my game when it comes to on the track having speed. That's why we're partnered up with the one and only McConey Setup Shop, the one-stop shop for all your coaching, setup, and paint scheme needs, along with so much more. Make sure to use code ALLCLEAR for 20% off to make sure you elevate your game like Kaz and I do on iRacing and much more. Now back to the show. All right, back at it here. We just finished wrapping up about Kaz sweating himself off from duel number 1 after barely making it in, but in such heroic fashion at the end. All right, dude. So here we come. Daytona 500 Sunday. Emotions are high. Again, rocking them Pit Vipers. Money team making it in. Real quick here. And we're going to go into the race right here. You started here. I believe you started 35th. Okay. So you started in the back and everything. Austin Cindric wins the Daytona 500. Quick little rundown of your top 10. Bubba Wallace finishing second, Briscoe in third, Ryan Blaney in fourth, Eric Almirola fifth, Kyle Busch in sixth, Michael McDowell in seventh, David Reagan finishing eighth, Brad Keselowski finishing ninth, and Chase Elliott finishing 10th. Kaz, you ended up finishing 26, 4 laps down. So many may ask if they did not watch, how do we get to this point? Still brought the car home very cleanly, a very respectful finish with a brand new team in the Daytona 500. Starting the day off, man, how are the emotions? Like, what was it like Sunday? I know you raced in the 500 last year. Okay. You raced for colleague and everything, probably in the coldest Daytona 500 I have ever experienced in my life in the stands. That was insane after the rain delay. What was it? What makes this one different than last year when you got to the car and all that stuff?
The energy was totally different. First off, last year, it was still COVID restricted for the 500. So I think it was at like 30% or something. And it was sold out for the amount they were able to sell. So that was cool. But this year was a whole different vibe here at Daytona because the grandstands were sold out. And the campgrounds, the infield was sold out. The place had 150,000 people on the property on Sunday. The energy was electric. The driver introductions were unbelievable. And walking down that aisle with fans on either side, you couldn't even see the infield grass. It was just people as far as the eye could see. So cool. So that energy on the grid leading into the race was incredible. And it's so special to be a part of that. And, I think the Daytona 500 is one of those races where it's hard to make the race. You're stressed about making the race, but once you're in it, there's some sense of relief and just a peace about it that you're here. You're in the biggest race in the country every year. This is the Daytona 500. No matter where you finish, it's going to be a good day. And the race pays so well, too, that especially for this new team, we knew that just making the race was going to be a really good day for the team in trying to start its business. So we were happy about it and content. We're like, hey, let's see what we can do. Try to run a perfect race. We ended up, as everyone saw on TV, we had a right rear wheel fall off, actually, which put us 2 laps down. And then we had a couple other random little hiccups here and there and miscues with that ended up putting us another couple of laps down. So we ended up a handful of laps down, but we took the checkered flag, and that's what we were looking to do. The Daytona 500 is such a hard race to finish. There's always crashes. There's always mechanical issues. It's a long race. It's a hard race. It's mentally very, very taxing for a driver to be that focused, that white knuckled on the wheel in the middle of a pack going 200 miles an hour for like 4 hours straight. It definitely tests every part of the team, every part of the driver, every part of the car. So we were thrilled to have finished the race, taken the checkered flag. It was a P26 finish. So we were happy with that. We know that we've got things to improve. We know what those areas are and how we could have done better. And that's the best part. As a new team, we've got that opportunity. We've got more races this year, hopefully, that we're going to be able to iron out those issues. And maybe we've got the Daytona 500 again next year to try to make a run at it, see if we can have that perfect race. So I'd say it was a really solid start for the team. So with some really clear areas to be able to improve in, and that's a good thing. When you have a bad day and you don't know why, that's difficult to try to pinpoint the issue and to fix it for next time. But when you can point to, we had 1, 2, 3 things that went wrong. These are what hurt us getting a better finish. We know what to do better next time so that these don't happen. That's a really good thing. So we feel like we've got an excellent shot to be able to do better in it next year, and hopefully we'll get to run some more this year. I know we've got our eyes on trying to run Coda in the Cup car with the money team. So if that's the case, then we'll try to have our flawless day there, and if we do, maybe put that 50 car up front.
That's what I love to hear, Coda. That's what I'd love to hear for you, my man. That's gonna be fun. Hopefully that all works out, man. Because I think I know who my underdog pick is for Coda, if that is the case.
Oh, yeah.
Something I want to tap in here too with Daytona, like we talked about here. Sold out crowd, obviously. Restrictions were completely gone, which is great news for the sport. Being a fan who was there over the course of the weekend, even Friday and Saturday, dude, it was packed. Like for a truck race on Friday, for Saturday, the fan zone outside was insanely packed. The parking was crazy. There was marching bands playing on Sunday in the morning. It felt like I was at like the Super Bowl, and that's obviously the target of this event. Is the Daytona 500 is the Super Bowl of NASCAR. And the vibes were insane. People were cheering outside even 2-3 hours before the race, going crazy. The energy was insane. This is my third 500. I've been to the last 3. This is the first one I've been to where there was no rain in the forecast, which is great. I think that definitely helped a lot with just the vibe and everything. But I just think a new car, a new generation of stock cars, new faces and new places and everything. All these things coming together to make this, personally to me, one of the best 500s we've seen in the past few years. And what a time to have it. You got new teams coming in. Like I said, Floyd Mayweather, the money team coming in. You got these other teams that are coming in as well. Jacques Villeneuve, like one of the greatest drivers of all time. He's in the 500. It's all these little things that add up to make this event spectacular. And one thing that many people may not look was spectacular was the wheel issue. Okay. And I know you lost the right rear wheel, I believe was the right rear wheel. This was around lap. I can't remember what lap it was. I know it was stage 1, wasn't it? It was stage 1 of the 500, I believe. First green flag pit stop, I think is when it happened. So I was sitting out of pit road and I saw you coming out of pit road, and I know you were getting back into the draft. I saw Briscoe spin, right? And then if not 2 seconds later, your wheel comes off, right? So I got to ask, like, from your eyes, were you involved in the Briscoe spin? Like, is that where your wheel got loose, or were you away from that? And what exactly happened with the loose wheel? Did you guys get a diagnosis of what the issue was?
Yeah, I don't think that they got the wheel synced on properly on our green flag pit stop, so it wasn't tightened down to the hub like it needed to be, which was interesting because I didn't have a vibration in the old car. If you had a loose wheel, you knew it. You had a vibration.
Yeah, you could feel it.
I had no sign of it, which was a little bit odd. So I went off into turn 1. Briscoe and all of them are quite a ways behind me.
Okay, they're behind you then. Okay.
I head off into turn 1 by myself at this point. I had gotten separated from people on the pit stop because we had a long pit stop. So we were just driving around by ourselves here. But this is lap 3 after the pit stop. I had not just come back out. I'd been up speed for 3 laps. I turn off into turn 1. And before I even knew what happened, I was facing backwards on the track. I talked to BJ McLeod, who was a little bit behind me. He was the first car behind me. Who saw it happen. He said apparently the way I ran over my right rear wheel, I actually went about 6 feet up into the air, and he thought that I was going to flip.
Wow.
So I was like pirouetting across the track with my wheel flying past me. Somehow saved it to where we didn't hit the wall. We didn't hit anything. We actually had no damage, that's a whole different story. That's a miracle. But that incident happened. A caution comes out. It looked to me like Briscoe got out of the gas for the caution, and I think it was Cindric behind him. I don't think he had gotten the word relayed to him soon enough that the caution was out. It looked like he just nudged into Briscoe a little bit there as the caution came out. But yeah, that's definitely a concern, and that's something that obviously we saw a wheel issue with Justin Haley as well, and I think there was a third one with somebody else.
Tyler as well, I think, because I think Tyler's right rear wheel just like give up on him, because like he was just driving out of turn 4, and on the replay, it just looked like the car just yanked to the right. Like it just the rear wheel just like it just got out of place or something like that. So, and I was going to ask you I mean, we're talking about this now. Like, what do you think about the whole wheel debate right now? Because I know a lot of people on social media and everything, which obviously, they're not, obviously not everyone on Twitter is an engineer when it comes to Goodyear or anything like that. So, but a lot of people are asking, why doesn't NASCAR just go back to the old wheel configuration with the next gen car? Why aren't we trying that? I want to see the one lug nut work. I want to see it work because it definitely fits the next gen type of look with the car. It's pretty cool as well. Pit stops are a little bit quicker and everything. Kind of makes these pit crews like every little second counts on a pit stop now.
Yeah, and I think their goal is to make it more like a production car as well with a single
Mhm.
lug nut. So I'm sure they're going to keep that. I do imagine they're going to maybe come out with a couple small tweaks to the actual hardware of the hub and the wheel itself, to where these issues don't happen. But I mean, that's part of the next gen car. We all knew coming into the year there were going to be a couple small things that were going to have to be tweaked as the issues were found, because
Mhm.
these cars are going to be run so much more over the next month than they've been run over the last 2 years of testing them combined. So all little issues will be discovered, and I'm sure they'll be able to make the necessary tweaks so that this doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I think we can both say kudos to NASCAR for I think a successful Daytona 500 with the next gen car. There was definitely a few little bumps right there in the road. With you had a loose wheel there. Justin obviously had one. Tyler I think had an issue with the wheel as well. But other than that, we talked about how these cars run and everything. I mean, we could talk real quick about the package when it comes to these cars. I was a little skeptical at first, honestly, when I saw the duels and everything. I was like, oh, there's a lot of single file racing going on here. I wonder if these cars just aren't able to get runs. But I thought I was watching the 2011 Daytona 500 for a little bit, man. The way these cars were tandem drafting and everything, getting up to the front. What was your feelings on the package with this car? Did you think that were people being too aggressive some during these runs? Because I noticed right here, I'm looking at the stats for the race right now, and 28th on back. Every car that was out of the 500 was due to a crash.
Yeah.
Every car, and it's a little different compared to the last couple years. I know last year there was a big wreck on like lap 18, but after that, I don't think there was a single crash until the last lap of the race. This time around, it seemed like there was a lot more aggression. It kind of seemed like a lot of cars were being very heavy on the bump drafting. We saw Harrison go for the first flip of the next gen era down the back straightaway. Thankfully, he was okay, and looked like he was all good with that. What did you feel about this package and the aggression during this race? Were you surprised, or were you kind of expecting this?
I thought there'd be aggression in the race. I thought there would be a lack of aggression in the duels. It kind of played out the way I figured it would from a psychology standpoint of these guys trying to save cars, but also it's the Daytona 500. Nobody's going to go easy in the Daytona 500. So it makes sense. I think the biggest reason you saw some incidents here was the front bumpers in these things are actually pretty soft. And the rear
Mhm.
bumpers are very, very rigid. So as the pusher, it's a little difficult to feel the pushes you're giving, and feel just how strong they are and how they line up and how they affect the car in front of you, because it feels a little bit numb, a little like cushy in the front. But as the guy being pushed, you're feeling all of that with that rigid rear bumper, and it's lifting your rear tires up off the ground. It's tweaking the back of your car, the rear end. So you're busy all hands up front trying to stay in control of this thing and stay on top of it. So I think that's probably what ended up resulting in several issues due to pushing, lots of incidents. And I mean, I think that's the nature of Daytona, the nature of the Daytona 500. You're going to have that. But I felt like the package was good. I mentioned I had some issues with sucking up and being able to catch up to other cars. I think that the hole these things punched in the air uh, did not extend as far behind the car as the previous packages have. So it made it a little bit more difficult to try to stay up in that draft and to try to latch on to that draft. But obviously, as we saw, once cars are all in a line racing too wide and in that pack, It raced equally as well, if not even more exciting than the recent packages have at the plate tracks. So I think it was a good show from my viewpoint. I thought it was a good show, and I guess that's not necessarily a clear indication of how these things are going to race at the other tracks. I guess we'll get our first taste of that this weekend at Auto Club.
Absolutely. This is it's gonna be, I think this is the same equivalent of how big this weekend is. Like, we all knew this weekend, Daytona this past weekend was big for the next gen car. Like the official debut, Daytona 500. I think this weekend is just as important as Daytona when it comes to these cars. And I mean, we all know the Xfinity series and truck series, those cars are gonna and trucks are gonna run relatively the same as last year. You know, nothing too crazy when it comes to changes, but this is going to be a big test, I think, because here we are, we're at a track that's multi-groove. You know, over the last few years, whenever we were at this track, some very good races here, kind of despite whatever package we ran. There was always something going on. And with the way these cars are and supposedly how they kind of give back to the driver to where it's more in the driver's control and everything, I'm excited to see how this works. I know you're not going to be in the cups. I know you're not going to be in a cup seat for this weekend, but I know you're excited just to watch it and see how this all goes down and everything. And speaking of Auto Club, you, my friend, you're driving in it. By the time we're recording this and be uploaded tomorrow, in the number 45 machine for Alpha Prime, if I'm not mistaken, 45 car.
Yep, 45 car, bright. You cannot miss it in the Xfinity race. So
2 weeks in a row, bright cars, 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, you'll be able to find me no problem. So it should be fun. I love Auto Club. I've only raced here once. It was back in 2018. Actually, the hardest hit I've ever had into a wall was here.
I think I remember that. I think I remember that now. I remember that.
Yeah,
actually, were you
as
in
I was
the
crossing the checkered. So
yeah, weren't you in the
actually both finished
61?
right.
You were in the 61 car, right?
It was that year, but I was in the 24. It was
Okay,
before
okay.
Yale shut down. So it was in the 24 car. We hit the wall as we were crossing the line. So still finished 14th, but absolutely creamed the outside safer barrier. So yeah, but I loved this track. Had a lot of fun. So I'm pumped about it this weekend. Should be cool. It's gonna be big to watch the cup race and see how the next gen cars handle here. I think next weekend is going to be huge to watch. Vegas, the very first time we see the next gen car in a mile and a half.
Mhm.
That'll be a really good indicator. And the week after that, we get to see a short track at Phoenix. So I'm going to be glued to my TV the next few Sundays to see how the next gen car goes, even though I won't be racing in it for the next 3 races. I will be in the next 3 Xfinity races, by the way, at all 3 of these places. But yeah, the cup cars, we're really going to get to see how these next gen cars handle the more normal tracks.
Yeah. And I think you made a really good point about that, how these next few weeks are going to be a big indicator to where this car is going. I think the 500 was a great start for this next gen car. There was definitely, like I said, we said there was a few little bumps, you know, and everything, but you know, it didn't really take away from how good that race was. I think with all the lead changes and the action and everything, it was a good race. I gave the 500 a solid 8 out of 10. It was a good 500. You know, things went bad for some, things went good for some. Kind of how 500 usually goes. The fans were crazy, sold out crowd, new energy and everything, and I kind of expect the same for Auto Club. I'm kind of expecting we're definitely going to see what teams have this car figured out right off the bat. And I think that's what a lot of people are really excited to see. Is Hendrick Motorsports going to continue their domination from last year, or are we going to see maybe Joe Gibbs resurge and take over that role of the team? Or maybe, who knows, maybe Mr. Brad Keselowski's got a thing up his sleeve, and here comes RFK out of nowhere, and they got the speed. It's those are all the exciting things that we're gonna be seeing here. We're about to wrap the show here for our first episode, but real quick before we end it, something we like to do here. We're gonna do a quick little stud, dud, and underdog real quick. So just for the Cup Series here, we pick who we think is gonna win the race, who we think is gonna not have a good run, not because we don't like them, but because we think something's gonna happen, whether it's a mechanical issue or a crash. And of course, the underdog pick, someone that we think maybe they can win, or maybe they're going to surprise some people. So, Kaz, why don't you start out here? Give me a nice solid stud, dud, and underdog for Auto Club.
Oh gosh, I got to start this. Okay.
You want me? Do you want me? I'll start if you want. I'll start if you want, because I've had a little bit more time to think about it.
No, I can do the stud, dud, an underdog pick here. So stud, I'm going to go with somebody who drives a lot of different things and is able to adapt quickly. I think I put Larson in that category. I put Reddick in that category. I think those are the guys that you're going to see maybe out front of this next gen era, be able to control these races because they're able to adapt better. So I think guys like that you're going to see as the studs. For the duds, I don't have a specific one yet. Obviously, we don't know what to expect, but I'd probably put sorry to them, but the older guys as the duds potentially, because I feel like it's the older guys, the established Cup veterans who have been racing nothing but Cup for the past 10 years of their lives, or 15 years of their lives. And so you throw a different thing at them, and I don't know, maybe they won't be able to adapt. I bet you somebody won't. And we just don't know who that guy is going to be yet. But there's going to be someone undoubtedly that struggles with this transition. This might be our first weekend to get to figure out who that is. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's an older, wily Cup veteran. And for the underdog pick, I think I got to go with the young guys. I guess Cindric would have been a good pick last week, right?
Yeah, right.
But I think that you'll see you may be able to see a Harrison Burton or Todd Gilliland be able to shine in these next gen cars potentially because they have been racing more varied stuff over the past few years. They're younger, they are able to adapt to these cars, and I certainly would think of both of them as underdogs in the Cup Series as rookies, especially Todd with Front Row Motorsports. I'd say they are definitely underdogs in this fight. So I'll be curious to see how those guys do and see if they're able to be at the forefront of figuring out these next gen cars.
I like the way you approach that because this is the first kind of week where it comes to the next gen car. You know, we're gonna see how these things actually drive when it comes to no drafting, plate package and everything. So studs for me, I kind of like your approach a little bit. I'm gonna go with my stud. I'm gonna go Kyle Busch. I just got a feeling he adapts very well. I think he's still in his prime and everything, and he usually is very good at Auto Club as well. So I'm gonna go kind of like where the Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Reddick approach like you. I think this could be a great week for Tyler. You know, a lot of people have been circling Tyler this year, could have a really good year. I would go with my duds, kind of like what you mentioned before, but I don't know how Stuart Haas is right now, and I know they struggled last year. During their plate package, they seem to have struggled when it came to sucking up to other cars. So I'm kind of going to go that approach where we may see like someone like Kevin Harvick and Cole Custer. Again, sorry to all the fans out there, those drivers. I love them. I respect them. Just my opinion on this, you know, we'll see how it goes though. I hope I'm wrong. And then for the underdogs, you know, I can kind of go that approach where we may see someone like Corey LaJoie, maybe even Ty Dillon, who, you know, I feel like has worked like just like you to get to this opportunity now to be back in the Cup Series and, you know, try to do something here. So someone like Ty Dillon and, you know, as I'm just kind of looking through, maybe even a William Byron or a Ryan Blaney, you know, that can go out there and do that. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that all works out and everything. And I know you, my man, you're excited as well. You're racing at All Club for Alpha Prime here for the next few weeks, guys. So I'm sure everyone watching, go on, support Kaz Gralla, man. I'm excited to see what he does. And we'll be back here every single week. We'll break down what happened with Kaz at the track. And we'll also break down all the other stuff in NASCAR. Hopefully this time around a little earlier in the week, so you guys have more time to catch up before the next race and everything. Kaz, any closing thoughts from you?
No, I'm glad that we are clear on this first, all clear. I'm pumped about being able to do this every week. So yeah, this was a bit of a crazy week with Daytona and then West Coast swing coming up. But yeah, we'll get these to you earlier in the week coming up here. So we'll be breaking down all things West Coast over the next few weeks, and there's going to be a lot to break down with these new next gen cars. So you'll hear from us about that.
Absolutely, guys. Well, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and close out the show for the first episode. Thank you so much for listening to us babble on about Daytona and all the amazing things that are involved in the sport of NASCAR from the Daytona 500 as we head towards Auto Club. He's Kaz Gralla, and I'm Joey Stone, and now you are all clear to move forward. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time with All Clear.
Kaz Grala is the winner, the youngest driver to win at Daytona in NASCAR National Touring Series history.
Joey Stone just picked up his first career win. Holy cow, what a